Hi, this is Bob from Hobby Concepts, and today I have a grand hauler here. And what I'm going to show is how to modify the tail lights with a Tamiya MFC so you can actually fill all the holes in the bumper. Now, a grand hauler has got 4 LEDs on each side and 3 in the middle. A stock MFC only comes with 1 backup light and 2 lights on each side. So with this little modification, you can fill up all the holes, make the truck look a lot better. I've actually got a little kit that we sell at Hobbyconcepts.net that has all the parts you need, a little bit of soldering involved, but it's really pretty easy. Plus it makes the wires longer so they're easier to install. The grand hauler is kind of a long frame for an MFC, so this is a great modification. I do it in every grand hauler I build. I think you'll like it. Let's get started.
So let's talk about the grand hauler rear bumper. Grand hauler rear bumper has got space for 3 backup lights and a couple of turn signals, aux lights, brake lights, openings. The Tamiya MFC, if you're using a Tamiya MFC in a grand hauler, it has a couple problems. The MFC was actually designed before the grand hauler came out, so it only has 2 5mm turn signals, 2 5mm tail lights, and 1 3mm backup light, which don't fill all the holes in the bumper. The second problem with the Tamiya MFC in a grand hauler is that the wires were originally designed for a king hauler and the frame is several inches shorter. So get this thing undone here. So if you install the stock length of wiring into a grand hauler, you really can't reach the MFC. You have to clip them and extend them. I mean, you can barely reach if you are quite creative in how you run the wiring, but you really can't reach. So we don't have enough LEDs, the wires aren't long enough, and so the solution to that is this little kit right here, which is a grand hauler taillight modification kit from Hobbyconcepts.net. And it has got a bunch of LEDs and some shrink wrap in it. So what it's got is it's got 3 white LEDs as an example here for the backup lights. And you'll notice that these have also got about 8 inches of wire on them. So they not only give you more lights, but they make them longer. So what I'm going to show you in this video is how to install them, how to install the lights, how to use the shrink wrap and everything, and then how to install them in the truck so we can really light up the whole back bumper. So the first thing we're going to do is solder them together. I'm going to take these 3 backup lights, I'm going to solder all the blacks together and all the whites together. So what I've done here is I soldered the 3 blacks together, and now I'm going to solder the 3 whites together. I just twisted them together and then soldered them. Just shorten them a little bit. I use a pair of cheap side cutters for doing this work. So now what I have to do is join those to the Tamiya backup light string. And the backup light string is the gray and white string. So I'm going to clip off the LED that Tamiya provides. It can go right in the garbage can. And then what I'll do is strip these wires here, twist them a little bit, strip these wires here, and hook them to the Tamiya wires. And that'll turn my 1 bulb into 3 bulbs, and it will also lengthen it. So I'll go ahead and strip these and then we'll solder them on. So in the shrink tubing, I'm just going to cut a short little piece of the large size and a little piece of the small size. And then I'm going to tin the wire. Now, tinning the wire just means taking some solder putting it on the wire. That makes it easy to solder together. Trim those off a little bit. And then what I do is I drop a piece of both sizes of shrink tube over this wire. And then I'll solder it to my main bundle. Let me do this so you can see it. A little extra blob of solder here. Okay, and then I'll put the small shrink tube up over my solder joint, shrink it. The big tube, see, will go over the 3 wires. The small one won't quite fit. And there's my connection. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing for the second one. Cut a couple pieces of shrink tube, drop them over the wire, solder them together. I've taken my newly expanded string, plugged it into J18, which is the reverse lights, and now on my radio, when I hit reverse, the backup lights come on, and you can see that all 3 of them are on. So that's excellent. We went from 1 backup light to 3, and our string is now that much longer, which on a grand hauler will make it that much easier to install. Okay, so the next one is the tail lights. And as you can see, this string has 2 bulbs on it. It's a single string, and what they've done is they've got the 2 bulbs hooked together with a wire in between. So I'm going to just clip this right here, get rid of those. I'll take my 4 red LEDs now, and I will do the same thing I did with the white lights. I will hook all the blacks together, all the reds together, and then I will solder them on here. I'll go ahead and do that. So on the taillight wires, I joined all the blacks together, and you can see I've done the same thing where I soldered them into that string with the 2 sizes of shrink wrap. We'll do it again here on the red one. We'll just solder this together. Pull the shrink wrap up. And what I'm doing here is doing the small shrink wrap. You just show it a little better that way. So that covered up my joint, and then this will cover all 4 wires, which will keep them all neatly organized. So now my tail light string has got 4 lights on it, and same thing, it's been extended. So now I can plug it into the MFC, and it plugs into let's see, 18. I should know this, 19. Real time here, we'll plug it in. Turn my radio on. Turn my MFC on. Okay, so we should have our back, there's our brake lights. Okay, and I should be able to flip this down and flip on tail lights. Oh, I probably didn't map this yet. I gotta do that. In that last little bit, I didn't have the radio mapped correctly to the MFC. So now it is. So now put the throttle up, and then I got my brake lights, and then set my switch down, and I have my tail lights, and you can see that all 4 lights are lit up now, which is going to be neat when we put it in the bumper. Okay, the last remaining lights are now these 2 strings, which are my left turn and right turn. And there's a couple ways we can do this. But these are actually 2 separate strings, because you have one left-hand string right here and one right-hand string, and they each have 1 bulb on them. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to clip the bulb off, and then I'm going to take 2 3mm amber bulbs and hook onto here exactly the same way we did with the other 2 strings. And then on this side I will do the same thing. So we'll have a string with 2 3mm bulbs each. I'll go ahead and solder those up. On the taillight string, same thing. I put the blacks here to the blue. The orange is going to go to the yellow. Do our little dance with the 2 sizes of shrink tube. Okay, so now I have a turn signal string that has 2 3mm bulbs and is longer. So I'll go ahead and plug those in and we'll test them. So I've got all the lights plugged in now, and so my turn signals have dual bulbs, and I've got my tail lights, of course, which I can turn on, and my backup lights. So now we're going to go ahead and install those in the rear bumper. The Grand Hauler rear bumper comes with 2 different sets of taillight lenses, so you can use different colors if you want. But since this kit has colored LEDs, I'm going to use only the clear lenses in the bumper, so I'm not going to use those at all. And I will cut those out and glue them in. I glue them in with, and I've mentioned this many times, micro crystal clear, which is a PVA cement. So I'll go ahead and get those glued in, and then we'll talk about which bulbs go where. So I've got my clear lenses installed. Now it's time to do the bulbs. So the first bulbs are these 3 backup bulbs, which illuminate these 3. They just drop into this holder, and then this clip just mounts over them. Now, one of the issues, since these have got some shrink wrap and a resistor here, they don't fit through this clip to this little slot here, so you have to just open it up, and I just do that with an X-Acto knife. So I've opened up the slot here. I'll actually open it up more than that. So you can see that I've opened it up. You can probably see the difference there now. So I'll open up all 3 of them, and you have to do that in order to fit the bulbs in. Okay, and now the bulb should fit in there. Like that. It drops in. So all three of those go in there. More. There we go. So those mount like that. This sits on top of the bulbs, and this little assembly then drops on like this and screws on, and then all three of those lights are captured, and they screw on just with a standard Tamiya little self-tapping screw. Looks so much better to have all three of these backup lights illuminated. Okay, now obviously I have to put in the other screw. The next thing we have to do are put the full 4 bulbs in here, and then this cover screws over the top of them. Normally this cover is black or white. I painted them obviously, but I have found from experience that the slot here in the end is not big enough. So same kind of thing as the lights, I'll take an X-Acto knife and I will open up this slot, because now we have a lot more wires going through it. So we'll just kind of open that up a little bit. It doesn't have anything to do with holding the lights in, so opening up doesn't hurt anything. Now, we've got our turret signals, which will mount in the 2 outer holes, and our tail lights, which will mount in the 2 inner holes. Now this is a little bit of a trick because there's not a lot of room in here. So, get a couple screws ready. The bulbs need to be bent over at 90 degrees, right close to the bulb. So I found that it's easier to bend those ahead of time. Got those 2 and then these 2 here. Gets to be quite a mess of wires back here. It looks so good when it's done. Okay, so now these will just mount in here, and I've never glued them. Probably would be a way to go if you're having real problems fitting them in. I managed to always get them to work. And they go like that. The wires have to just kind of tuck around all the mounting posts. And then the cover goes over the top. And you can see what I mean about getting these wires in here. It's a little bit of a trick, but eventually you get that work down, and the screws, there's only 3 screw bosses here, and 3 screws will hold this down. So I'll go ahead and get that mounted down. So here's the finished bumper. You can see what the wires look like and how they run up to the MFC. So I've got my backup lights here, all three of them. I've got my turn signals. I've got my tail lights and my brake lights. You can see them get brighter as the brakes go on. Of course, if the tail lights are turned off, the brake lights come on. And emergency flashers. Turn the tail lights back on. Much nicer looking setup than the stock lights. Plus now it's also longer, so it's easier to fit. The kit also comes with this piece of spiral wrap. And I've used this a lot. You've probably seen it in some of my other videos if you've watched them. But basically we bundle the wires together, and then this just wraps around them. So what I'm going to do here is I'll take a tie wrap first. Get a tie wrap around this whole bundle. Kind of get everything all pulled together. And then the spiral wrap just starts to wrap around it. Like this. And we'll just continue to wrap around this bundle going forward. I'll wrap it up a little bit here. So there's my spiral wrap done a little ways. You can see the bumper all set to go. Same standard MFC plugs, we've changed nothing there. So really we've just added lights and added some length to the loom. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up through my truck and finish attaching it. But that is really how you install this this kit, and it really makes the lights look better, and it makes the leads longer, which fit better into a grand hauler. So here's the final effect of the kit mounted in a grand hauler. You can see how clean that looks with all the clear lenses, and we've got our emergency flashers. And of course those are also the turn signals. We have our tail lights here, which do get brighter as the brakes are applied. And then we've got our backup lights, all three of them. Makes for a really, really nice looking bumper. So anyway, and it's easier to fit the wires because they're longer, and yeah, the whole thing just makes it look a lot nicer with the standard Tamiya MFC unit. So there you go, that's the Taillight modification kit. You can obviously do your own the same way. I just tried to make a package to make it easy, and you can add, I don't know how many lights LEDs you can put on a single string in an MFC, but I would think somewhere around 10 would be the very most. The most I've ever done is 4. So, but you could use this technique to duplicate a few other lights around the truck. So, anyway, give me a thumbs up on this video. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much, and please subscribe. You'll see more Tamiya semi-truck tips and building and all that stuff coming up. So, thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.